Hi, hi, hi.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing okay. How are you doing?
Good. Very good. Getting a lot of shadow for some reason. Ugh. Let me open these and see if that helps. Better. Welcome, everybody. It's so funny. As we meet, fewer of you come on camera, even though the same number of people are coming. And I would totally be doing the same thing. I can totally relate. Uh, those of you who put yourself on camera, extra, extra love because I can totally relate to not wanting to do it. Hey, Sarah. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. How you doing?
Good. My own coaches had like a spontaneous Zoom live yesterday, and I was like, I don't want to get on camera. I don't want to engage. I just want to take in the information. And then I saw that they made a note of that in their email, like, hey, your cameras won't be on. I'm like, yes. Cleaning my office, listening to the lecture. That's great. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Good to see your faces. I can't believe it. We are week 11. We have one more week after today. That is crazy. That is crazy. What's so bizarre on my end is how much work you guys have already done. You've just been working your butts off the whole time. And sometimes like I'm looking at the lectures and I'm like, oh, I've already like talked about some of this. This is totally gonna not blow their minds at all because we've already like seed planted some of these ideas. So I'm just very impressed. Very impressed with your work. All right, let's pop into the chat what your wins are. Let's let's have a little look see what you can give yourself credit for having done over the last week or so to move the needle forward in your business. I know sometimes we do this on Thursdays, sometimes we do it on Tuesdays. It's Monday to me, so let's do it. If you're just popping in, we're just dropping some wins in the chat. What can you give yourself credit for that you have done to move the needle forward in your business? About halfway done with my brochure. Awesome. Way to go, Veronica. Things are so hard for me to make aesthetically pleasing. Like from a content point of view, I'm like, oh, okay, I can put some. Then I go to put it in there, and I have to do the two things separately, like write the content and then make it pretty. I can't do it at the same time. I got asked to do a podcast from a mutual therapist to discuss basic information for therapists to know about neurodivergence. That's awesome. That is so awesome. Yay. I know that Janine Wolf is starting a podcast. She would be a good person to check out too.
That's actually who it is.
Oh,
I'm
cool.
in I'm in Janine's consult group. I have been for like 3 years. That's kind of my touchstone for talking to other therapists and not being isolated on my mountain. And we end up talking about it a lot. She was like, would you want to put something together? So now I'm starting to think about what I can try and do that's like just a basic and then with resources and stuff. So
Oh,
yeah, I'm kind of
awesome.
excited about that.
Heck yeah. If there's a way for you to get the people's emails with an opt-in, that would be really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Putting it out there. I got a date from Blue Cross Blue Shield to be off their panel. I'll be fully private pay in June. Way to go, Hillary. That gets applause. So brave. Good for you. That's awesome. Sarah is working on blog posts and supported an onboarding client who struggled with their insurance. Way to go. They decided an option that means out of pocket costs for them, but connects with me sooner because they want to work with me ASAP and don't want to wait. Get it? I mean, as soon as we open our minds to the possibility that people might choose to pay privately, all of a sudden we communicate differently and they choose to pay privately. I love it. Maria started fiddling with Google Sites so I can do that aspect of my website. Nice. And created the document to make the content for my new PT profiles that I will swap out with each other. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Way to go, guys. Keep those wins pouring in. It's really good for you to reflect on them. I'm going to drop the link for our lesson today. I try so hard not to say at the beginning every time, like, I'm excited about today's lesson, but it's true. It's what I feel every single time. I just happen to have a really good job. Okay. Alrighty, I'm going to share my screen. Today, we're going to be focusing on small things that you can do to make a really big difference. And I'm going to give you a lot of options of small things. So twofold warning. One, you're not going to get overwhelmed because you've probably already done at least some of these things. Two, you're not going to get overwhelmed because you don't have to do all of these things. And three, in order to not get overwhelmed, I want you to listen for the one that you're like, that's the one that I want to spend time on Thursday. So do you hear the potential of overwhelm and how we're going to not get overwhelmed? Yeah? Okay. All right. I started looking through this to review and I was like, oh yeah, they know that. Oh yeah, they know that. And then I got on page like, I don't know, 27. I was like, Jesus, Amber, come on. This is too much stuff. All right, let's jump in. Here we are in our marketing intensive talk. And I have it on this screen now. So sometimes I'm going to be looking over to the side. We're going to be going over all the small things that you can do to make a difference. Doop, 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 doop. And this is the quote for you to come back to over and over again. I am only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but still I can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do something that I can. You get the vibe, right? Pick a thing, a single thing. Alrighty, we're gonna start with the easy peasy. If you don't already have a domain on your website that is your name, we wanna grab another domain. So your domain is like the amberlyda.com or the dramberlyda.com, whatever your .com is, that's your domain. So maybe you have it as the name of your business, that's totally fine. I want you to go buy another one from GoDaddy or wherever you're buying your domains from that is your name, .com, no .orgs, no .weird things, .com. And if your name is already taken, then you can have mariarowleytherapist.com or mariarowleycounseling.com. So you can add a word to it, but I want people to be able to Google you and for more ease of finding your website. Now, here's what's cool. Your website can have 30 domain names and they all point to the exact same site. So we're just giving more paths for you to be found, okay? I know people who have like very difficult to spell last names or last names that are often misspelled, who have bought domains in the misspelling way to point to their website so that people are more likely to land on their website. So you can get as many domains as you want, but make sure that you grab one in your name and on the back end of your website, and you can just Google this. It's slightly different for all like Squarespace, WordPress, wherever, Wix, but all of them will let you point multiple domains to the same page. If you want to get fancy, a level up option is to also make sure that your name is added to all of your social media titles. So for example, instead of the Online Therapist Group, it really should be the Online Therapist Group with Amber Lyda. That way, whether people are searching by online therapy or they're searching by my name, they're going to land on the same place. Listening for what you're going to do and what you're not going to do, right? Google My Business. Likely, let me see hands if you have already set up your Google My Business. Awesome. See, I told you there are going to be some that you've already done. Google My Business is good for your SEO no matter what. I know one of the downsides of it is that it truly is more like local focused, but it still helps your overall SEO. Searchability with people like typing in your name, therapy in Melbourne, Florida, right? That's how they're going to land on your profile. But even if they're not landing on your profile because you're not actually in that area or they're not in that area, they're still going to get more SEO out of having a Google My Business profile. You will have to potentially get a postcard. So you need to use the address where you'll receive it. And We can also experiment with an address versus an area. I'm not getting into the weeds with you on that because there's a much better YouTube training than I could provide you on it. And I added that here. So this is you should definitely do this training if you don't already have your Google My Business set up. And if you want to get fancy pants, you can do this one as well. I'm still talking with Dara about gifting you her Google My Business training. So you can wait on it if you want until you get that, but these are both free. And you can also be marking stuff out. If you're like, did it, just mark it out. Okay, SEO hack. Did you know? Remember that SEO is a long game. It takes a hot minute. So one thing that I've been asked a lot in the course is, how do I know if my website's performing well or not? Like, what are the basic statistics that I could compare my website stats to versus other people's? The reality is that we don't have them. Let me unshare for a second. So what I recommend you do is track your own statistics. So all of us will be able to get stats on our website, and I should have, dang it, I should have gotten you a video in here on that. Hold on, let me write myself a little note because that's supposed to be in here. What are we going to write the note on? We're going to write it on a Post-it. Track site visits. Okay, I will add that in. Along with a website that will do it for you, so it's super easy. But what we want to see over time is a trajectory up the number of people landing on your page. So that's the one piece we want to see. And the second piece we want to see is people staying on the page. So I don't know why I didn't write that in. So we're going to have number of people landing on page, length of time staying on page, and we want a low, what's called bounce rate. And bounce is just like they land on the page and they immediately leave it, like, oh, that's not what I'm looking for. Those are the three pieces we want to track, and button clicks for schedule.
Amber, are you trying to share your screen right now?
I wasn't, but I should have been. Thank you.
Okay.
There we go. So here they are. Number of people landing on the page, length of time staying on the page. We want a low bounce rate. And how will we know if it's low? We're only going to know by comparing it to what it was before. So those are just 4 little numbers that we can track. I'm going to give you a very detailed reason why this is important to track in just a little bit. Okay, so if we're thinking about how do we help with SEO? The only way we know if we're doing a good job with our SEO is to track our visitors. So this is what we're going to track. And then to up our SEO, we're going to make sure that any image on our website has good alt text. We've talked about this a whole bunch of times. How many of you have already added alt text into your website? This is the back end. Good job. Back end description. And the number one purpose of the back end description is to help with accessibility with people who can't see the image and they're using a screen reader to tell them what the image is. So hold that front of mind. And then the second bonus piece we get is that if it contains keywords that are searched for on your website, it's also going to help you with findability. So I know people often only talk about the second one, but the first one's actually more important, the accessibility piece. If you're like, what the hell do I do with it? I gave you a little YouTube video here that you can watch that will help. The next piece to help with your findability, your SEO, is to have people link to your websites. These are backlinks. So some ways that you can do this is, I was going to put this first, the Reddit. If you're going to do the Reddit, how many of you are going to do a Reddit? Hands up, hands up. Everybody do Reddit. Right? Good. At the end of the Reddit, we get to put our website in there. People will click the link. They will click the link. And Reddit has just so much like reputation points with Google that when people follow from Reddit to your website, it's so much more powerful than them following from like a social media post. It tells Google a lot more and gives you way more reputation points. How many of you have heard of Haro, Help a Reporter Out? A few of you. Oh, cool, cool. So Haro is a place that reporters and sources go to get matched up. It's like a little matchmaking system. I put a link in here for you to sign up if you want to. Let me just tell you a little bit, I'm not sharing right now, about Haro before you sign up. So what happens is every day, 3 times a day, you sign up for their basic thing, it's totally free. You sign up to be a source. 3 times a day, you're gonna get a digest. And it is a list of topics that reporters need an expert to weigh in on. And usually they want like a freaking sentence. They don't want a whole lot from us. Sometimes they'll want to hop on a phone call. Sometimes they'll want you to answer like 4 questions. You can do it in email, you can do it on the phone, whatever. It can get very overwhelming to get 3 of these a day. But the trick to actually getting picked for them to quote you as a source is to respond fast, because they just want to get their work done. They already know what the hell they want to write in the article. They're just like, we need to reference somebody who knows something, who's going to respond fastest. So what was helpful for me after I stopped OCDing it and looking at every single one and spending hours of my life doing this, is I was like, all right, Amber, on Monday and Wednesdays, you're allowed to look at them. And other than that, you're just not allowed to look. Okay, you're going to miss some opportunities. That's fine. But like your whole life can't revolve around Help a Reporter Out. It will help you to get a backlink or 2. It's not an end all be all marketing strategy. So, and it's kind of fun too, to be like featured in, you know, and like name some source. It's kind of fun to do. Sometimes you will do a few of these and you'll never hear from them again. And it turns out that they actually cited you online and they just never told you. So you didn't even know about the thing. So I set up something called a Google alert. I'm gonna just type that under here real quick. I'm not sharing the screen, but I'm gonna type a note to myself of Google alert to know if published. That way the Google alert will tell you like, hello, your name has been mentioned here. You might want to go check it out. All right, I have Google alerts for a ridiculous number of things. Let's see, I see a question over here. We may have touched on this, but do you have a resource video on how to do a Reddit AMA? Yes, there's a training in the course on how to do it. And it's by Nick Fuller, and he also is willing to guide you through it for pretty low fee. Like he'll be your backup support for the day for a pretty low fee if a group of you want to do that together. And if a group of you decide you want to do that together, hit me up and I'll help you like set up the thing with him. All right, let me go back to share. You are not going to do all of these things. You're only going to pick some of these things. And if I was picking between Haro and Reddit, you know which one I would pick, right? I would definitely pick Reddit. You can also be a guest on podcasts like Michelle is going to do. Some people who do podcasts that you could check out or maybe hit up. Janine Wolf has a podcast. And you guys can share some in the chat and I'll copy and paste them over here if you want. Patrick Casal has one. I'm trying to think of people who have guests. Allison Per Year has one. If you have more, pop them in the chat and I will add them to the document later. Next one, infographics. Not many of you will do these because most of you don't have the clientele for whom infographics would drive a whole lot of business. But if you work with moms love infographics. If they know what like cognitive stage their kid will be at different age groups and you have it on an infographic, they will download it, turn it into a magnet and put it on their refrigerator, right? So infographics can be really helpful for certain audience types. And infographics are great if you are thinking about using Pinterest to get your content out there. For you guys, like infographics are not my jammy jam, and it's probably not the jam for my audience. So only pick this one if immediately when you think of your peeps, you're like, yeah, they would love it. And then the last one here is guest blogs. So anybody you know who has a blog, or go do some research to see people who have blogs. This is particularly helpful if you've got a narrow niche that's easily searchable. So when it's not just a personality type, but it's, social anxiety or performance anxiety or neurodivergent folks. When it's something like really searchable like that, it's easier to find people with blogs that you can connect with and ask if you can do a guest blog. Don't straight pitch somebody that you've not read at least a few of their blogs, because you're not going to know what to say to be able to add value to what they've put out there. All right. Some of these, like as I'm going through these with you, there's parts of me that I'm thinking if I were doing my business, my online practice again, I would just knock out. Like I'm not doing infographics. I'm probably not going to guest blog. I probably would get on podcasts. I may or may not do Haro. I would definitely do Reddit. So I hope that your brains are thinking the same way. Kick them out, keep this one. If you're like, I don't know how the hell to backlink, Amber, I linked a video for you here. Here is the link for Haro. And this video right here will give you really good pointers if you're thinking about how the heck do I get on a podcast. And it even works if you're just trying to get on a blog. The same methods would apply. And if you're not following this lady already and you want to have a side hustle, you should be following her anyway. So watch that video. All right, questions about that stuff so far? Good, now we're gonna get to the really important stuff. All right, so just to set the stage, you've been doing a crap ton of work, and it takes a little time for the seeds that you've planted to start germinating. So I see sometimes people will be like, man, I've been doing all this work. I don't have any clients. I'm giving up. Like, okay, it must not have worked. I'm giving up. Please don't do that. Keep on doing the work and do the work till you're over full. Because the other issue that I see is people are doing the work, they're doing the work, and the clients start coming in and they do what I did. It was like, cool, I'm done. And then they coast. And you don't want to coast until you got a wait list. So I want you to keep doing the marketing until you're over full and you're like, I can't take it anymore. Don't stop marketing because you're like, oh, I only have 2 spots left. Don't do that. Be over full. Don't be right on track. Okay. Ooh, Tiffany McLean. Great thought. Yeah, she's a great podcaster. She's a great teacher. All right. So this next section is going to teach you how to troubleshoot if you're thinking like, why am I not getting clients? But the meta message that I want you to hear is, first, it takes some time for the clients to start coming in. And I don't say that to tell you to wait because clients are going to come in later. I'm telling you, keep marketing until you're over full, but expect it to take a little bit of time. Let me share my screen. Okay. Make sure it's sharing the right one. It is. So it's probably about time if you're not getting clients yet. That's number 1. Number 2, we're going to track things. So we're not comparing ourselves to other people. We live in different states. We live in different cities. If we're looking locally, we have different niches. So I don't want you to say like, so-and-so is getting a bunch of clients and I'm not. You have no idea how saturated their market might be. If you can't compare. So the data that I talked about earlier is what's going to tell us if you're moving in the right direction, even if clients haven't come in the door yet. Numbers on your website tell us you're moving in the right direction. So we're going to track that data. And also that data is going to help us troubleshoot if there is a problem, where the heck the problem is happening so that you can fix it. So we are going to first, if you're not getting clients and it's not just about time, this is like super duper important. So really tune in if your brain started going somewhere. We got to figure out where the problem in the funnel is. So first we're going to think about, are people even landing on my directory listing or website? And you're able to see that in both Psychology Today and on your website. Are people even landing here? For most therapists, we're like, 2 people came to my website today and I still don't have anybody booked. What the heck? the numbers are very annoying. You have to have a lot of people landing on the website in order to convert. Can I give you the exact number? No, I can't, because it's all specific to your niche, your state, your blah, 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 all that stuff. So the only way we know is to track over time. If we're not getting enough traffic, I'm going to talk you through what we do for each of these steps. So I'm not going to go there yet, Am. The next issue might be that they're landing on our page. So we're getting traffic there, but something's happening that they're not staying on the page. They're bouncing right off. We're going to talk through how to troubleshoot that. The next is that they land on the page, they check it out for a while, but they're not scheduling the free consult. We're going to troubleshoot if that's a problem. The next is they show up for the consult, but they don't convert. So we got to do some work on our free consult. The number that I look for here, because we're aiming for private pay, just so you have this in your mind, I was referring out 60% of the people who came into my free consult. So I just want you to have that in your mind, how many free consults you'll need to be doing to get your caseload full. I don't want you to feel like, geez, I've seen, all these people and nobody's coming in. That's a really normal number. They come to the consult, it goes really well, but then they no show for the intake. So what the heck is happening there? They show for the intake, they don't come to the next appointment, etc. You get the idea. This is the whole flow. So we're looking for where the heck are people falling off, because we want to solve the actual problem, not a guess stat problem. I'm telling you, I can't even count how many people, and I've done it myself, are like, I'm not getting clients, I'm going to change my copy. But people weren't even landing on the website. So it wasn't like they were landing there and they didn't like the copy, they just weren't even getting there, right? So we want to fix the problem where the problem lies. Here are just some ideas. You will return to this. So you might even want to make a copy to hold this section separately, and maybe once a month, come through this and look at the details and think, okay, where's the issue if there is one? Let's say that just not enough people are getting to your website. There's not enough traffic for it to result in client conversions. So what can we do about that? We're going to make sure that our headers and our subheaders are optimized. So we'll go back to that keyword research that Nick teaches you in the SEO training that's in the course. We're going to make sure that we utilize alt text, the description of the pictures. We're going to see if we can increase backlinks by going on podcasts or getting on blogs or doing another Reddit. See how I said another Reddit? We're going to increase social media that leads directly to our website. And I kind of put some of this in order, right? Like the most important thing is the headers and the subheaders. Second most is going to be the alt text. Third most is the backlinks. Way down here at fourth most is pushing people there through social media or QR codes if you're doing like person-to-person kind of networking. And then give your efforts time, but keep making effort in the meantime. I would often notice that if I went on a little frenzy of activity, like you sometimes get in the mood for marketing and you do a bunch of stuff and then you don't do anything for a while. I would notice that it was this weird, like 10-day window. I'd do a frenzy of stuff online. And then like 10 days later, I would start getting calls. It was always my window. I've seen other people say like 10 to 14 days. So I don't know what sort of like internet magic happens in that time, but something does. So make your efforts, give it time, but keep making efforts. And then of course we can use hacks to get more SEO for free. So doing YouTube stuff or Reddit stuff is going to increase your SEO. Let's imagine that they landed on the site, but they're not staying there long. So you're getting lots of traffic. They're all hitting the site, but then they're like, nah, and they leave. What do we need to do about that? We got to make sure our copy is tight. We want to work on our images. I hate it that images matter so much, but they really do. And here's something that I've seen happen a few times where the keywords that somebody was using for their website that was getting people to land there really didn't match what they were giving them on the site. So it didn't line up very well. So people landed there because the keywords that Google was reading for the site said, yeah, this is what you want. But they got on the site and it really wasn't about that thing. So we just want to make sure that your keywords are matching for what your site is actually talking about. Make sense? Okay. So this isn't super hard, right? If people are landing on the site, but they're not staying long, you have the tools to fix all of these things already. You have the tools to fix all of these things already. You've been trained in all of them. Now let's imagine that they land on the page, you're staying on the page, but they're not scheduling the dang free consult. So what the heck? What do we do here? They're staying on the page, your copy's probably pretty good. Your images are probably pretty good. But maybe there's an issue with your call to action buttons. You're not making it easy for them. So are there enough call to action buttons? Do they stand out against the background? Are they bright? Are they grabby? Are they direct? So learn more is not direct. Schedule your free consult is direct. Do they match where the client is in their journey? So if you're writing a blog about how to know if you're suffering from depression, it may be that that's early enough in their recovery journey that they're going to need to see another blog before they're ready to hear schedule now. And it might be a better call to action to send them to another blog. So just make sure that your calls to action match for where they are. And you know what this one is. Did you make it easy to schedule? Can you make it easier? So we want that auto scheduling feature hooked up. Okay. Now they have scheduled the consult. You're winning. Traffic is landing on your page. They're staying on your page. They're clicking the schedule now button. Win, 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 win. But then they freaking don't show for the free consult. So there are several potential issues that might be happening here that we can improve so that they end up showing up. So we just think through like, what's the experience for them? They click the button, they schedule, then what happens? You know, is it 3 weeks before they get into your calendar? Because if so, the momentum might be lost by then. We really want them to hop in within a few days. Did they get an email or some other confirmation? So they're not out there just like floating around in the woods, wondering what happened, not knowing for sure if they even made the appointment. Is there a reminder email or text or something that's going to happen before the appointment to help them remember? Are there clear directions in kind, non-robotic, non-systemsy words about what to expect? Because I can tell you right now, if I book a free consultation for something and I don't know what the heck is going to happen, I might not show up. But if you give me a little like 3 sentences about what to expect, like, hey, it's going to be on video, here's the link, you know, like little details like that, then I'm much more likely to show up. This is what we're going to talk about. And if you want to get fancy pantsy, are you activating motivation and hope in your instructions? You know, like, are you being nice? Are you saying like, I'm so glad you took the courageous step to reach out. Let's jump in. Let's figure out how to help you live the best life, you know, whatever is in your language, so that they're already getting a vibe for what it's going to be like to work with you. You guys know how to do all of these pieces already. Let's say all the other things have worked. I'm not going to repeat them every single time, I promise. But they're not converting from the consult. So you do the consult, you're referring 60% or so out, 40% it's a good match, but they don't end up scheduling or they no show or whatever, right? So what's the problem? Then I want you to really look at how you're structuring the free consultation. Go back to my free consultation, like template outline thing that I gave you, and go through here and see, are you spending enough time? Don't get in a rush to be like, I need to do this in 15 minutes. Mine were always between 20 and 30, and they kind of leaned heavier towards 30. It was well worth my time. Are you building know, like, and trust in that meeting? Or are you just peppering them with questions? Are you demonstrating your clinical skills of attunement, understanding, empathy? Or are you just moving through a bunch of questions to see if they're a fit or not? Sometimes you're going to get stumped with things like the first question out of their mouth is like, how much is it? Or do you take my insurance? And we have, remember, we have worked through scripts in that. So if that's happening, you're like, what the hell am I supposed to say? Go back to the script section and you will find exactly what to say. Are you doing like a little mini intake where you're offering them a little baby conceptualization of what might be happening? It's a little tentative. We're not saying like, here's what's going on. You got locked in at Freudian stage 2 and blah, 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 right? We're just giving them a light conceptualization, a connection, and maybe like a little tentative treatment plan. Like, I'm hearing that the sleep is a real big problem right now, and that it's probably coming from a lot of the stuff that's going on with you and your mom. So what I'll do in the beginning is give you just some really easy tips to improve your sleep in the short run. But we both know that in the long run, we're going to have to figure out where the stuff with your mom is coming from and resolve that for you to get some long-term relief. Them, so they get an idea of what's going to happen. Here's super duper important. Do not come from a place of desperation. You get panicked, nobody's coming in the door. You're like, please convert, please convert, please convert. We don't want to be in that place. We want to be in the like, oh, this poor human, like, so brave for them to contact me. I bet you they're pretty freaked out. Let me see what I can do to help them to feel a little bit better in this next 30 minutes and see if I'm a good fit. Let's just see. My job in the free consultation is to see what they need and to give them a good experience and to help them get connected to what they need, whether that's me or something else. If you can like iron that into your head, then you're going to be coming from a good place. We talked about this one a little bit already. Close the loop. Do not in that call with like, reach out and let me know if it's a good fit and we'll schedule from there. Nope, lock it down. Either we're scheduling or we're scheduling a time to communicate further about what we need to figure out so that they can decide if they're getting into our system permanently. Make sense? I'm summarizing quickly because I know we already talked about it. Okay. And then this last one, which kind of gets back to the desperation, is if you're in a stance of service, you're going to come across as like curious and open and collaborative. And that's where we want to be. We do not want to be in any sort of place of coercion. Like it's got to be me or it's no one. We don't want to be coming from that sort of place. Be really unattached to the outcome. Get Buddhist. Be unattached to the outcome of whether they stay with you or whether they go to someone else. Our only goal is for them to get the best care possible. In fact, if they're talking you into staying with you, that's okay. That's a good place to be. Questions about that section? Do they show up for the intake? The consultation goes great. You are nailing it. And they're not showing up for the intake after all that work. So what do we need to think about? If you can intuit any reason that they might not show for the intake, name that shit and work through it during the free consult. So like if you've done the what's worked for you in the past in therapy and what hasn't worked for you so well, if you happen to cover that in the free consult and they say, oh, I'm one of those people that like jumps in and then I don't do it anymore. Call that out and be like, you might be tempted to not come because sometimes we get so much relief just from the initial conversation that then we lose the momentum to follow up. So I'm just going to name that out loud as a temptation that some people experience and explain a little bit of why it's very important for you to follow up because over the last 6 years, you've started and stopped, and you're not feeling any better overall. So let's name it. Right? If you normalize that impulse to not follow through, then they're better able to notice it and to follow through anyway. And not everybody is going to have that. So you're just naming it for the people who you can kind of tell might have that experience. Did you make it easy for them to show up? So setting up the expectation, like, all right, so, we talked about all this stuff in our consult today. When we meet on Tuesday, we're going to do a deep dive. I'm going to ask you a million questions so that we can get like an even clearer understanding about where this issue that we're talking about has come from. And once we understand that, obviously this is my own theoretical orientation, then we can talk about the ways that we can step out of that pattern so that we can hit those goals you mentioned of blah, 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 blah. So by the end of that 75-minute assessment, we're going to have a real clear picture of what we're going to be doing going forward. But I'm going to be asking you stuff from like lots of angles. I'm going to be asking about all sorts of biological, medical stuff in your family. I'm going to ask about past experiences. I'm going to ask about your thoughts and your feelings and your impulses. It's going to be a lot, but we're going to be able to have a really clear plan going from there. The more information you can give them without overwhelming them, the better it's going to be. Did you get buy-in during the free consultation? One of the ways that I always get buy-in is I tell them the plan, like I mentioned, of like, okay, so if I'm hearing this right, sleep is the number one issue. Yes. Okay. We'll address that first. And I'm guessing in 3 to 5 sessions, we're going to have a pretty clear action plan that's working to at least help your sleep, to a decent degree. And then we're going to work on some of the underlying stuff. And here's what that's going to look like. We want their heads nodding while we're talking so that we know, like, all right, this is sounding good. From a sideways marketing point of view, marketing geniuses always look to psychology to know how to market. If somebody is mirroring your body in a session, that's a real good sign. If they're nodding your head, what we know is that through head nods, this is why when you're watching one of my videos, I'm always like, nod your head if, raise your hand if, give me a high five if. All those are micro yeses. And the more people say yes, the more likely they are to follow up, the more likely they are to feel oxytocin connection with the other person. So all of those are like micro yeses that we want to be getting as we're talking. Reminders. Unless you are theoretically opposed to the reminder, please send the damn reminder. For most people, it's going to increase show rates. So unless there's some real good reason not to, please send. And then we just want it to be super easy. Like, here's a link, click the link, we'll be there together. Like make it as easy as possible. Questions about any of that? Okay. They did the intake. It went awesome. You love it. You love them. They love you. Scheduling the next appointment and getting the show after that initial intake. Making sure that in the intake, even though you're having to gather a crap ton of information, you are still a therapist throughout. You're still reflecting back and staying attuned. You're not so fixated on paperwork that they don't feel seen, heard, understood. Just be your good self in the room. Don't get so caught up in the details of the assessment, making sure that you've dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's. Like, listen, here's what we need. We need to have a basic reassurance that they're not going to die before we meet them again. And we need them to feel connected. That's about it. Everything else we can gain over the next many sessions. So if we can do a decent risk assessment and make them feel connected, everything else after that in the intake is gravy. Yeah, Daniel, what are you thinking?
Oh, sorry. I'm actually, so I put a question in the chat, but this is before you moved off of the intake session. And so my question was about kind of your thoughts on having prospective clients prepay their intake session or prepay to book it versus scheduling it and then seeing if they show that process. And I know there's pros and cons both ways, but just want to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I think there are pros and cons both ways. Most people are used to paying after appointments. So that's going to be the normal expectation for them. And I think you'll lose fewer clients if you let them pay after. On the other hand, there's a vetting that happens. The sort of people willing to pay ahead of the appointment are a different sort of person. So you might get more of your ideal clients if you narrow that window more. If it were me, what I would do until I was over full, I would let people pay after. And then once I was over full, I would set up that they had to pay ahead of time. That way, I know I got my people. I don't need to worry about losing clients. It's okay for me to get more and more narrow in my vetting because I already have a full.
Thank you. That's helpful. Yeah.
You got it. Thank you. Thank you for raising your hands. I could see you. Yeah, I can't see the chat all of the time, only some of the time. This next one, super important. In the intake, you're asking a lot of questions and it's kind of exhausting as a therapy client. I'm sure you've been on the receiving end of a thorough intake. And by the end, you're like, whew, geez Louise, that was a lot. So laying the frame for them that like you appreciate so much that they were able to go to all these places. Here's how to take care of themselves and maybe close up a little over the week, and to understand that normal sessions don't look like this. You're going to meet weekly and give them a little expectation. I'm not going to ask you 40 million questions. Typically, you're going to lead the conversation, but we will have it centered around the themes that are most important that we talked about in the intake. You know, I'll help you to get started in the first few so you don't feel totally responsible. Whatever it is that you need to say so that they're really ready for what that first therapy session looks like, because it's so different from the intake. And if I felt like I had to do an intake every time, I never would end up in therapy. Making sure that you're checking in with them frequently during the intake process. You guys often hear me say, I need a temperature check. You know, how are you doing? Let me get a read on where you are right now. Because without that information, we don't know if they're feeling dysregulated or bamboozled by the number of questions, or if they're like, this is so annoying. Like, I just want to talk about what happened yesterday. You know, we don't know unless we're asking. So check in. The scheduling of their next appointments. Unless there's really good reason to do it different than this, I really recommend that somebody has a spot in your schedule. Every Monday at 3 is your appointment until we move to every other week. Like, we just see no-show rates plummet when we're not changing the time and the day every single week. So if you can pick a time in the day and you tell them, okay, Matt, this is your time on Mondays, and we're going to stick to this schedule every single week. Unless there's a real good reason for us to change it, this is your time. It also feels different for them. There's an ownership and there's a commitment to it. I also assume we're meeting next week unless they tell me otherwise. So I don't say at the end of that appointment, like, when would you meet again? No, 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 unless there's some theoretical reason that you feel like that's important. I mean, if you think about how does therapy work, how does it produce results? It's not through chit-chatting every week about whatever just came up that week, right? It is through following through on the underlying issues so that you can create long-term results. That doesn't happen through check-ins. So I would communicate that to them. We're going to meet weekly until you need space between appointments to practice the things that you've been learning in therapy. And then we'll move to every other week. Okay. And then we might move to monthly check-ins or whatever from there. So then just assume, see you same time, same place next week. That's what I say at the end of all my appointments. Okay, cool. See you then. So we just confirm it. It also is going to make your life way easier. Let me make sure it's sharing the right thing. It is. They should have a clear why about why they're coming to the next appointment. So we've summarized, okay, these are the issues. Okay, what's going to happen if you don't change anything? All right, therapy is the mechanism that's going to help you to have a different way of living, blah, blah, blah. So that's their why. Okay, we're going to move along here. Those are the kind of what could get in the way of flow. If you've gotten people through the website, the traffic is coming to the website, you are keeping them on the website, they're hitting that call to action button, they are showing up for the free consult, they're converting to an intake, they're staying in treatment from the intake and ongoing sessions. You're a freaking rock star. Now let's switch to referrals. If referrals are not a way that you're drumming up your business, tune out for a minute. You don't need to pay attention to this part. If referrals is going to be your number one marketing method, you need to make sure that you understand that it's about numbers. Give me a nod if you're seeing my screen right now. Great, thank you. So if they are warm leads, you know these folks, they're old supervisors or old colleagues, expect that you need to be reaching out to 1 to 3 a week. So it's a new reach out or it's a follow-up. Either way, it counts. 1 to 3 a week. If it's cold leads, we're looking at 10 a week. Only 1 is going to reply. So it is absolutely a numbers game. Then it's about frequency of contacts. Remember that it takes 5 to 7, sometimes even more, follow-ups to get a sale. So we got to follow up with these people and we have to find good reasons to follow up. And sometimes that is through our content marketing. We're creating cool infographics or flyers or whatever that give us an excuse to reach back out to them, or we're talking about a client that we've served together. We want to stay front of mind, which is why we need to regularly follow up, and specificity, specificity, specificity. So we don't want to say, what can I do to support your business? Because nobody's going to have the time to think about that. But if you say, hey, I noticed that you serve people with, I'm going to say hypochondriasis because I can't remember the new name. And that's something I do in my practice. Here's how I could support you. Yeah, Daniel.
Oh, sorry, I didn't want to take a ton of time on this, but my question was coming back to clients that you want to get into the weekly spot and make them essentially like encourage them to strongly commit. I wanted to get your thoughts on people that are not ready to do that. They want to do it weekly, or they want to do it less or sorry, not weekly, but bi-weekly or less frequently. And should those be ones that you say, nope, like take some more time and think about it and come back and contact me later? Like, how would you handle that?
It would depend on the reason. So if the reason was, I can't afford to come weekly, but clinically, I know that they would be much better off if they had weekly appointments, then I'm going to tell them that I want to get them connected with somebody who can see them weekly, because they're just going to get, they really need the weekly support. They're going to get better faster. If it's somebody who isn't like acute, they're not going to fall apart if I'm not meeting with them weekly, and they just want to do every other week because they're not really sure about, meeting so frequently, I would explore if they want to do double sessions. Okay, so if you want to meet every other week, here's the cost of that. Like, one of the downsides of that is that we tend to spend the entire session just doing catch up. And the danger is that we don't get into the deep stuff. So when people want to do every other week, my recommendation is that we do a double session. And then I'm feeling it out from there. I want you to lead with what's clinically most appropriate. And what has happened sometimes for me is that they don't think that they need weekly. And I think that they do, but not in a like crisisy way. And I'm like, we'll try it for 2 months and then we're going to regroup and see. It's not a financial problem. It's more just like, I don't feel like I need it, which means I haven't agitated the problem enough. So, okay, we'll do every week for a couple months and then we're going to check back in. And they almost always go to weekly then. Yeah, Maggie.
I just wanted to say like how I handle that one, because like I'm a real stickler about weekly, but some of my people are at every other week. Is if somebody wants to start and they want to do every other week because they haven't used to like really diving in and what that intensity is like, I'll say normally I only work with people every other week, but we can try it to get started. And then once they get to a point where they've just like trauma vomited like the entire session, I was like, wow, that was really heavy. That was a lot for you to hold for the last 2 weeks. I think you need more support. I think we need to go further into this, and I don't want to leave you unsupported in the next 2 weeks. And then they're like, okay, they find it in their budget point. Sometimes they need more rapport to be able to feel comfortable enough to go into that.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point too, of like, I just am thinking of myself. I hate going to therapy and I hate weekly therapy. I hate it. And if I knew that my therapist could help regulate me more, I would be willing to do weekly. So sometimes exploring a little bit, like I would literally say to my therapist, I don't want to feel like down in the dumps every week. I'm pretty good at compartmentalizing. If I have to come here and talk about shit every week, then I'm not going to have it compartmentalized. Now I was having a good week and now it's all messed up. So if we could have that conversation, then we might be able to talk about how to do things so that it would meet my needs of not getting like totally dysregulated, and I could get what I needed out of therapy. So here's what we're going to do, guys. There's not a ton left, but I want to make sure that you get it all. So I'm going to make a note here for myself that we stopped here because I want to recognize that some of you need to go somewhere. I don't know how to do what I want to do. I will find a way to do what I want to do. I'm going to mark this. And then we only have a little bit left here about testimonials. And how to seek them in different ways. So we will talk about testimonials and how to seek them in different ways on Thursday. And in the meantime, pick one thing, just one thing we went over today. All of you are going to seek testimonials. So we'll talk about that on Thursday and how to do it. I know we've talked about it a little bit already. I would love to have each of you have at least just one little baby testimonial. So we're going to work on that when we talk Thursday. I hope that you have a really good rest of your week. Pick one thing, only one, share it in the Facebook group if you're participating in the Facebook group so we know what you're working on. I'll talk to you soon. Bye, friends.